What was your how didn't they notice moment? Story 1. When I was about 13, I shaved my little brother's eyebrow off. I don't know why. I panicked and drew it back on with a marker with little hope that I would get away with it and avoid my mom's anger. Somehow I got through the first day, then the first week, every day getting ready for school and redrawing his eyebrow on with a marker to hide it from my mom. After a couple weeks it had largely grown back and I realized that by some miracle I got away with it. Years later I came clean to my mom and she still refuses to believe that she didn't notice. Story 2. One day my sister mentioned in front of my dad that she'd been helping me rearrange furniture at my house. Mentions my boyfriend. My dad is all surprised you and your boyfriend sleep in the same room by that point. We'd been living together for 6 years. It was my house. My parents had been over dozens of times. Where did they think I slept? Oh, we assumed you slept in the guest room by yourself. Edit. My family is Asian. Story 3. I was playing hide and seek at a friend's with her younger nieces. I was a teenager and not super committed to playing games with a couple of 8-year-olds. And as a joke I put myself in a corner between a wall and a bookshelf, picked up a pillow off the bed, and held it in front of my face. I was immediately visible once you cleared the doorway. I'm not a small person, and from the chest down I was just a person standing, completely unobstructed. The kids came through, looked right at me, and kept searching with growing confusion. The friend, my age, came in behind them thinking I'd gotten somewhere in the closet, and I had to actually wave to catch her attention. Her dad even came through to join the hunt, and I had to actually clear my throat to get him to notice me. Nobody was able to spot me on their own. I was just standing in plain sight holding a pillow in front of my face, but nobody noticed. Once everybody figured it out they were in hysterics. No one believed I'd been just standing there the entire time. They were certain that I had been hiding elsewhere in the house and then got caught after I'd moved. Nope, y'all just can't see. Story 4. Me and the boys playing hide and seek senior year. It's nighttime. Dark. It had previously rained. The only light is from streetlights in my friend's garage. Friend A counts to 20 in the garage. We all scatter around the outside of his house and a bit further to some other houses. I decide to hide not 10 feet away in the shadow of an AC unit right outside the garage. I was wearing full black, and I pulled my hood down to cover my entire face. I was in a crouched fetal position. I heard friend A walk past me about 5 times, from both directions. I peeked once and he even glanced directly my way. I was in plain sight. I felt like a ninja. Story 5. My hair used to be extremely long, like all the way down my back. On a whim, I decided to cut off most of it, and rock a rather short haircut. I walked around my parents' place for over an hour before they actually noticed. Story 6. I went for a job interview when I was 6 months pregnant. I wore a fitted pencil skirt and a fitted short blazer over the top. To my eyes the pregnancy was obvious. I was very slim and I had a belly that poked out at the front, well defined by the fitted outfit I wore. They didn't ask anything about it during the interview so I assumed they were okay with it and didn't volunteer it. Got the job and on the first day, at orientation, I got introduced to 2 other women who had been hired the same day for other roles in the admin office I was in. One was accounting assistant, one was admin coordinator, and I was admin assistant receptionist. The 2 other women were also pregnant. One looked enormously, and as it turned out we were all due within the same week. The woman who hired us said to me happily that they were very excited to have us all start, and I would be getting trained by the new admin coordinator so I could take over some of her responsibilities when she went on maternity leave. I had to tell them that I was also very pregnant as well and would be needing to go on leave at the same time as the other 2 girls. The organization was stunned and didn't know what on they were going to do when we all went on leave. Fortunately they were very comfortable with me coming back to work and bring my baby with me after 2 months off. It worked out great and I stayed working there for around 8 years. Incidentally, all 3 of us gave birth within a day of each other. Haha. Story 7. In boot camp when it was lights out, many of the other recruits wouldn't sleep and would try to monologue to us about whatever. I wanted to sleep since we always wake up at 5 a.m. and they kept us awake till midnight with their debates. At the top of my motherfucking lungs I yelled murder shut the. This went on for a while. Then I started doing it earlier and towards the end I didn't even wait for lights out. No one besides my rack mates knew it was me. No one else ever figured out my voice or where it was coming from. My rack mates got a huge kick from it and well they kept it real because we needed our 4 to 6 hours of sleep. My boyfriend and I initially started dating in high school. Our friend group was me and a bunch of guys, and I was relatively new to the group, and worried I'd become his girlfriend if we went public too quickly, so we kept it quiet. We later stopped caring, but it was too far in to make an announcement without seeming weird, so we decided to just admit everything if anyone ever asked, but not bring it up ourselves. Well, we weren't the couple that was all over each other in public, but we were fairly affectionate, always sitting next to each other, talking somewhat privately, playfully poking and all that. We would also hold hands on our way out of school, when we didn't see anyone around. That last one is what nearly caused problems the most. Regularly someone would come up behind us and say hi, and we'd quickly drop our hands. They never seemed to notice. Shockingly, our friends were really oblivious. We figured that they were probably noticing, but not saying anything, until one day, somehow a conversation arose about how some people are closer in our group than others. Both of our names are mentioned, and they all say that we seem like close friends. Somehow they all noticed we were close but never put 2 and 2 together. I know this because of the shock they experienced when they finally properly found out. We're still together, by the way. Story 8. So this was when I was still living with my hyper-religious and peculiar mother. Because she doesn't understand technology at all, I was able to get away with a lot. I played Skyrim in secret and she was used to me playing games, so she just ignored me for the most part if I was gaming in my room. If she knew I was playing Skyrim with its dragons, Draugr mages, Daedra vampires, etc., she probably would have taken my PS3 and burned it, grounded me for months and slung hours of Bible guilt trips at me. Anyway, I had been playing for a bit, probably 30 to 50 hours into my first playthrough, my first time encountering a Draugr Death Lord. You know, the ones that fuss road at you across the room. I was foolishly, naively playing without headphones, when I got blasted across the room 4 times in rapid succession. Suddenly I hear footsteps and pause the game just before my mother bursts into my room, looking for me to TV screen with a sort of horrified, suspicious look anyone raised by hyper-Christian parents is familiar with. While I had paused the game, it was just the journal screen which is translucent and you can see gameplay behind it. I happened to be face to face with a Draugr just then and had the Mace of Molag Bal equipped. I thought for sure I was screwed. She asks, what are you playing? It sounds like a war game like Call of Duty or something. I heard explosions and missiles. I told her no, I wouldn't play such a game because I know she doesn't like them and I've seen the gameplay and regardless it's not my cup of tea. True. Her face brightened. Oh okay, sorry to interrupt you, and flounces out. I heaved a sigh of desperate relief and started shopping for headphones. Story 9. I was the one who didn't notice. My now husband, way back in the early days of our dating, replaced our giant, bulky, old CRT TV with a nice, new flat screen with his Christmas bonus. He did not tell me any of this. I came home from work one day, wandered past the TV and him playing video games, into the bedroom, back past the TV, then the kitchen. Took me a good 45 minutes before I went, wait, something is different, and I don't know what. He still had to point out to me that what was different was the old TV was missing. Story 10. I absolutely destroyed this thing at an old job of mine. I nervously looked around because my coworkers were all over the place and it was loud. But no one looked. I managed to compose myself, clean it all up and make it seem like nothing had happened, then finish the rest of my day. A week passed before they casually brought up that everyone knew and saw what happened, but didn't want to help me. Story 11. I used to do customer service for a video game, can't give details, don't want to get sued, wherein I responded to email tickets. Before sending a ticket, you're required to create an internal note wherein you documented their response and what your response was going to be, plus any additional necessary info to help conduct a search. Once, I wrote in the internal describing their message saying, customer sent me a bunch of useless, because well they had, after repeated clear instructions, they failed to send me the correct info. So I typed it to unleash the rage, thought I deleted it, then the next day I come in and see I have a response, and I go to start a new internal note, and realize I had, in fact, left that line fully in the previous internal note which can't be deleted or edited, meaning that if anyone from the company or my workplace saw it, well, I'd be in a lot of. Thankfully, I did this around the holidays and we were swamped with other issues, so no one did any audits of tickets that week. Needless to say, I never played around with that again. Story 12. When I was 10, I took it inside the ruins of a medieval fortress. My grandpa walked by while I was doing my thing. Fortunately for me, he was too absorbed in his thoughts and didn't notice me. Even though there were no doors. OP, thank you for making this thread. I remembered the greatest achievement in my life. I can't believe I have never shared this story to anyone over some drinks. Story 13. I was buying weed a few years ago. I pulled up to an apartment complex and was waiting for the weed dude when a window in the apartment in front of me opened. A second later a little girl maybe 10 to 12 crawled out. I was 21 and buying weed, so my thought was, do I yell up? No, she could fall. Catch her, nope, there's bushes under there. Then she jumped to the balcony next to the window, climbs over the railing, and tries to open the door, but she's locked out. She knocked and some irresponsible, seemingly confused parent opens it and lets her in. No one else saw. Story 14. My parents are very strict and don't allow me or my siblings to have electronics in our bedrooms, but we'll ignore that rule and continue doing whatever we do online at night. One morning my mother came into my room to wake me up before school started and opened my curtains, which are on the window next to my bed. On the windowsill behind the curtains is where I keep my laptop, Nintendo Switch Lite, phone and sometimes iPad. She proceeded to rip my covers off and said get up before leaving my room. I had never felt utter panic before then. Story 15. In high school I got pulled over for doing just a whole bunch of stuff mostly related to trying to get away from the cop. He asked me why I did it and I said I was trying to get home by curfew at 100. Then I looked at the clock and realized it was already like 300, so I changed my story, just got a warning. Story 16. One time when I still in school my mother walked into my room in the middle of my acid trip and asked me what I was doing up. I turned around instantly with probably the craziest look on my face and said I couldn't sleep. She told me to go to bed and shut my door. Tripped that night. Story 17. A few years ago, my friends and I were drunk as stumbling down the street to a McDonald's. My best friend pulls out his and starts peeing and walking at the same time. While this is happening, a cop passes by and gets stuck at the light about 10 yards away from us. Literally all he had to do was look to his left and he would have seen 3 teenagers who can't even walk straight laughing their asses off because one is walking and peeing. Very grateful he didn't look. My life would be a lot different if he had caught us. Story 18. Went through an entire enlistment in the Navy in a way where people thought I was dumb and I didn't bother to correct them. I let them think I was not able to fix things because they only assumed instead of actually asking me. I made E5 on the second try, and near the entire command was confused as I was an ET, and the entire exam was on specifics about equipment maintenance and repair. To this day I get to talk to old crew members, and they bring up how I fooled everyone into thinking I knew nothing so that they wouldn't bother me or wake me up from sleep to fix some. Story 19. My friend came to work wearing new glasses one day, and when she was showing them off to me I mentioned that I was surprised because I had no idea she needed glasses. She had been wearing glasses most days on and off for a year since we started working together. Multiple people confirmed this when I didn't quite believe her. Maybe I need glasses, v. Story 20. Back when I used to cut myself regularly, my arm was all scabbed over. My mom was measuring me so she needed me to take off my jacket. I never truly understood panic until that moment. I kind of moved my arm weirdly so she wouldn't see. She just thought I was awkward because she was touching me. I had to sit down for a few minutes after she left, lol. Story 21. A couple years ago I was doing no shave November, so I had built up a decent growth of beard, and on the last day of the month I decided to shave just half my face and keep it for 24 hours before I took the rest off too. So for one day I went around campus with beard only on the left half of my face, and you could tell that at least 80 of people's brains just extrapolated the second half of my beard because they didn't blink, while the remaining fraction would turn their heads as I walked by. I was talking about it with some friends outside my class while waiting for my professor at one point, and when she arrived my friends tried to show her my face, and it took a full 30 seconds and her putting her face a foot away from mine and peering before she suddenly jumped back and exclaimed, "Oh my gosh." At some point halfway through class she even stopped her lecture to tell me, "I really see it now and your face is very distracting." Story 22. I was at work and needed to take the fattest. Now for my work I clean the toilets so I know when they are and aren't busy. So with that knowledge I choose whichever bathroom I please, men or women's. I had recently just gone into the men's one for some cleaning preparation and had seen how awful it was. So with my knowledge of the current toilet traffic and not wanting to sit on covered toilet seats I decide to use the ladies' room. Me being a dude BTW, now how these bathrooms work is it's a small room with a sink and shower, and then in the corner of the room is a stall with a single toilet. The problem is that the lock for the bathroom itself was broken, so I had only the stall lock to stop people from entering the toilet itself. But they could still enter the bathroom. I wasn't fazed and figured if anyone did come in they would see the stall being used and just go somewhere else, so hey race where I get myself in some trouble. I'm sitting on the toilet chilling on my phone when I had a lady enter. Now the plan was to stay quiet and just let her leave after she's realized it's occupied, but blurted out in the manliest voice ever, someone's in here." Instantly the woman starts raging saying how it's a women's bathroom and I shouldn't be in here. I tell her I've never been here before and that I just walked into the wrong bathroom. She couldn't stand me and says she going off to find the manager of the place and have me taken out. I'm shitting myself literally. Not only am I in the women's toilet, I'm also dirtying it while I'm meant to be cleaning it. Oh, and also I'm on the clock too. I'm getting paid for this right now, so I'm definitely getting fired if my boss knows what happened. Never before have I wiped my so quickly. I pull up my pants and prepare for the shame of exiting the bathroom and having the manager waiting for me. To my surprise I walk out and no one is there. I'm thinking sweet, no one will ever know, when about 30 meters to my left I see the women with the manager pointing to me. I turn around and begin heading the other way, but not before I notice them walking towards me. Now again for context, between me and them was a room in the middle of the place that you could loop around. So I begin to go around it and about halfway there I stop and think they'll be going the other way to cut me off. So I double back and sprint to the cleaning supply room with gallons of sweating dripping from my face. And well, they never noticed and I was never caught, and I occasionally still in there from time to time. The only difference is I've been practicing my girl voice. Story 23. Haircut. I always wait 3 months between haircuts, and cut down to 12-inch on top and shaved on the sides. Wife rarely notices. Beard. I let my beard grow out and my wife complains. I shave it off and she doesn't notice for hours or even a day. Story 24. I was in class of 25 students and spilled tea on my new laptop. I said decently loudly and ran my laptop to the bathroom. No one remembered seeing me spill the tea, hearing me say, or seeing me leave the class. Story 25. My leg was gushing blood and my parents were just like, "Why aren't you in your room studying? You'll be a failure if you don't study hard enough, like bruh." Story 26. When I was 20 I got arrested for shoplifting alcohol at Target. That was bad. But a bigger problem was that I also had about a gram of weed and pipe in my messenger bag. The thing about my bag is that the pockets had ripped long ago, and so it sort of turned into a big pocket because things would just fall between the fabrics. This was great for me because I would be able to easily sneak in flasks weed into music festivals since security just kinda took a look, and at first glance it looked like the pocket was empty. Here's a gif of the bag to demonstrate what I mean. My problem was that this was not just some random dude checking bags. This was a Chicago Police Department officer searching my stuff. I was totally surprised when he didn't reach into the pocket and just took a quick look and moved on. I got so lucky he didn't notice because I could have easily caught another charge if he found my weed pipe, since this was before Chicago decriminalized marijuana. Story 27. I developed bulimia and I don't think I hid it well until I mentioned it to my dad recently. No one had noticed. It sort of started as a conversion disorder when I was anxious, but I lost 20 pounds and became 100 pounds. I felt compelled to vomit after I ate. Still do. It's been a rough 8 months. Also during this time I became addicted to the tranquilizers I was given to treat my conversion disorder when it went away, and am trying to quit them right now. Story 28. It was the first night I stayed over at my boyfriend's house last year. His grandpa is and, even though we're in college, refuses to let me be alone in my boyfriend's bedroom with him. Barely likes me at the house actually. Anyways, his grandpa was in the hospital and his whole family went there as well, so my boyfriend thought that night would be good to get me in the house so we could spend the night together. What we didn't count on was his aunt actually being in the house. My boyfriend thought she'd be at her own house just around the corner already. But nope. I had to hide in his room for a few hours. She never came in there. The only times I could have been caught by her then was when I first came in and when I ran out of the room to use the bathroom while my boyfriend blocked the hall from her view. She left around 1 a.m. and we finally had the house to ourselves, and very much enjoyed it. The next morning I wake up early before my boyfriend does. I'm laying there happy and content with my life. He cuddles up to me while still half asleep, and I begin to relax when I hear some noise in the house. At first I thought it was the place just settling. It seemed kinda old, and I figured it would make noises. No big deal. I relaxed again. A few minutes later I heard footsteps. I sat up slightly and nudged my boyfriend and said, "Is someone in the house?" He shot up out of bed and stared at his door listening for noise. He put his hand on my shoulder to signal for me to lay back down, and he moved a pillow to block where I would have been seen. Next thing we know, his aunt opens his bedroom door. I pull the covers over me, and my boyfriend lays the pillow on top of me, leans on it, and slightly moves in front of where my head would be. Apparently he had left the plates from the pizza we had that night in the sink, and she thought it was suspicious. Next thing I know, my boyfriend's 3 dogs run into the room. This is where it got sketchy. They all instantly jumped on the bed and started sniffing around me. I've got 3 dogs basically telling his aunt I was there, yet she didn't notice a thing. My boyfriend admitted he had me over that night, but made it seem like I had left after eating with him. She told him she wouldn't tell his grandpa as long as he cleaned the plates before they got home, which was in about an hour. I had my bag over to the side, 3 dogs sniffing around me, and proof in the sink that there was another person in the house. His aunt seemed to have no clue whatsoever that I was still there, despite the obvious signs. The rest of his family never found out, and to their knowledge I had never stepped foot inside that house until months later. I goofed a few times though while alone with them while my boyfriend was at work though because I showed proof of knowing the house well since I could navigate it on my own. They never guessed anything though. Looking back, there is a slight chance his aunt knew I was still there. She's a good woman though, and wants what's best for my boyfriend. She approves of me, and probably didn't want to get on to my boyfriend to begin with, but knew how his grandpa would react if he knew. He'll never know though. I refused to ask her, and I think it's better that way anyways. LOL. Story 29. I wrote of this elsewhere, so apologies if you read the story already. I became acquainted with an Asian girl through my work, and we got to be friends of a sort. She was trans, although it was not even slightly obvious. Shed had a number of boyfriends. We spoke of the subject one day, and I asked how her parents had taken her transition. She said her mom was okay with it, but her father didn't know. But don't they live together? Oh yeah, but he was born in China and he's kind of old-fashioned. So how do you keep it from him? I asked, gaping like a fish. When I go over, I don't wear a bra, put on a baggy shirt, and tuck my hair under a ball cap. He doesn't notice. Apparently it was beyond his comprehension. One day, she recounted, she was at her parents' when some movers were making a delivery. Papa introduced her as my son Tom, and they did double takes. They weren't fooled at all, but Papa remained blithely ignorant that his son had long ago become his daughter. That's got to hold the record for me, as far as how didn't they notice goes. Story 30. My father was installing a cat flap. I pointed out that he was installing it upside down. He ignores me and continues. I had to stop him before he cut the door to literally show him the box and repeat that unless he felt like replacing a door, he'd need to start over. Story 31. I used to have long hair and my granny hated it. The day after I cut my hair lost about 8 inches, I went to lunch with her, and not only did she not notice, but when I pointed it out to her she didn't believe me until I showed her a photo of me from a week prior. Story 32. I am in my school's theater tech class. It's really fun and I love all the cool we get to do. We have this thing called the wash. It's a metal catwalk above the audience where lights shine to the stage. For this play we had to shoot poppers onto the stage. There were 3 of us. The other 2 decided to wait for my popper to go as their cue. My popper didn't go, so theirs didn't either. I was terrified the tech teacher would yell at us after the show, but he didn't. About a week later my friend, she was working by the doors, told me she saw the teacher walk in and say, "Did the poppers go?" Look so good they did, and then ran back out the door. What this man saw, but the poppers sure as didn't go, so it wasn't them. Story 33. Sorry for my English. I'm Russian and wrote this with Google Translator. It may seem strange, cause in English there are no such words as in Russian. Jokes about gulag is very funny in this context. Like when I was 14 we rested in a summer camp. And in the middle of the camp shift, when all the counselors went to drink when we all sleep, we decided to run away from the building and go for a walk through the forest. We put pillows under the clothes so that if the teacher came in, she thought that we were sleeping, and we started to leave one at a time. During this, one girl started to leave the girl's bedroom. She opened the door very slowly and creakily, and this woke up the teacher. We started very quickly and the senior counselor noticed us and we ran away. I've never run so fast. We ran to the farthest building and turned into the woods. I was in a camouflage windbreaker. Then they caught up with us and we had to hide in the grass and small bushes. I sat in front of everyone, and here the counselors with flashlights come in. The distance is about 10 meters and they shine right on me, but by some miracle they didn't notice me. Apparently camouflage color really helps. When we didn't know what to do, we decided to just give up. We went back to the building. They scolded us and threatened to drive us out of the camp, but everything ended well. Story 34. Not me, but my karate sensei. He is a wonderful guy, completely bald and had a fairly bushy beard. As an experiment, he shaved half his beard off, as in, left side only. It took half a day before anyone, including his wife and kids, noticed. Story 35. A dude and his family worked at this phone refurbishing warehouse. Very lax but tight in retarded ways, security, metal detectors and everything. This cut out pockets into his boots, and at his workstation would shove phones into them. He would steal 3 to 6 phones a day, and would do so for about 2 to 3 months. Story 36. My boyfriend and I wanted to see what would happen if we gave the fast food worker a gift card to a restaurant that we weren't at. We thought it was funny because of something that happened to me while I was working in college. We ended up giving a Jack-in-the-Box worker a Starbucks gift card. She swiped it, handed it back and said it declined. We didn't die of laughter until we were away from the window. Admittedly, it wasn't that funny, but it was fun for us. We were going through a rough spot in our relationship. Story 37. First, hey, raise some background info. In 8th grade Spanish class, I was one of the few people who paid attention, and it really showed. Some people say my normal speaking voice is like a whisper. It doesn't seem like that to me, but a lot of people say it. I would always answer questions, and this kid who literally knew nothing always would steal my answers. And surprise, surprise, I was right, and they didn't actually know anything. On worksheets he would always demand I give him the answers. I made him figure it out on his own. One day he kept asking, so I threw a pencil at him. The moment it hit him, the teacher turned away from the board to the class. I was so sure she'd seen it. It felt like she was looking at us. I tried to play it off like I was just waving my pencil back and forth out of boredom, but she didn't even notice I threw the pencil at him. Story 38. When in 5th grade, I fought this kid and he kicked in the face so hard my bottom lip started bleeding and it was swelling. I went home, nobody noticed, like a proper swollen lip. Not only that, my forehead had a decent purple spot. Story 39. I was playing hide and seek in a small store and am the only left to be found. I'm talking in the phone with my friend who is also playing with me and giving him clues as to where I am. Now keep in mind I'm 17 and don't really want to hide that much longer, so it's pretty obvious where I am, but his cousin walks right past me while I'm talking to my friend. He just completely ignored me and kept walking while I just stared at him, in shock. I then get up and just tell my friend on the phone that his cousin walked right past me. This time I decided to find a better hiding spot just to laugh at them. Story 40. I straight up stole like 40 comic book treasuries from a box in a locked attic space by my parents' bedroom and kept them in my closet for years without getting caught. Dad decided that Calvin and Hobbes was a bad influence and banned all comics from a house for 2 years. My parents caught me literally every other time I disobeyed them. In college I lied about which train I took and got yelled at because the times I was texting didn't match up to when the train was predicted to arrive at certain stops. Mom thought I'd get raped murdered if I took the CTA to Chinatown. She wanted me to make my friends wait at their apartment while I took the metro down to them, and then take the CTA with the group up to Chinatown. I was 21 and it was the middle of the afternoon, but they didn't notice I'd taken the comics. And I know they weren't just letting me get away with that one because a couple of years ago my mom tried to claim the band did help me behave better at school, and was not happy when I informed her that couldn't be true. I stole back the comics almost immediately. Specifically, I stole the books right after being told that my attempt to earn them back with good behavior proved they were influencing me and therefore I wouldn't get them back for a year. Story 41. Not mine, but my dad's from when he went camping for Air Scout or something, and at the same time the military was doing some training. He said that he and the rest of the group were having a long pillow fight in the hall or something, and then suddenly there's 2 men in camo with machine guns standing in the middle of the room going S. He also said they saw them watching Sesame Street early in the morning, looking really tired. It was probably the only thing on at the time and they had probably been up for 2 to 3 days at that point. Story 42. I go home for lunch most days and sometimes he'll spill food on me and change my shirt. Not once has a coworker noticed him wearing a completely different outfit. Story 43. I had a pretty intense kink impact scene a few days before a sudden lengthy hospital admission. I was bruised from my shoulder blades to my knees. A nurse had to help me shower every day. They have to ask about unusual bruises, both from a DV and a symptom perspective, but not one of my rotating nurses said a word. I was in hospital for 5 months, and they'd only just disappeared before I was discharged. That's a lot of opportunities for someone to say something. I'm still very surprised no one noticed it. Story 44. Perhaps this was just clever on my part. When I was about 8 years old, I wrote my name on my bed frame in pen. My mom discovered it and was livid. How are we ever going to sell this bed frame with your name on it? I told her. I did that when I was like 6 and you already yelled at me for it. She bought it. Couldn't believe she was that gullible. Story 45. Our school is strict about our haircuts. We had an assembly and they inspected all of the male students' hairs. Many were sent home to get a haircut, but I wasn't included. I haven't took a haircut in 3 months and still going. Story 46. My math teacher said, what is the formulas of the area of a triangle? A classmate said, can you please repeat? And then my math teacher said, correct, very good. Story 47. I couldn't be stuffed to do class work one day, so in science I've said a bunch of answers. I ended up monologuing about Spider-Man between like 7 different answers, mention Batman too, and only answer the first few and last few questions. Teacher decided she wanted to check everyone's work as they were leaving to make sure everybody actually did the quiz. She skimmed over my work, and without changing her expression, just said good and went to the next student. That could have been multiple detentions.